Kate, and I'm a non-wool knitter and crocheter, and this is my podcast where I talk about my adventures crafting with non-wool yarns. We are officially in the seasons of non-wool yarns. So for all of you who may be new here, welcome. Let's talk about what I've been working on. So first off, I have to say that my progress has slowed down a little bit because as a recovering high school theater kid, I still do some community theater every so often. And a couple weeks ago, I started rehearsals for a new show. So I am in rehearsals most weeknights, and that has kind of slowed down my crafting progress. We've mostly been doing music rehearsals, which means that I don't have a lot of downtime yet. So I do make sure that I take a project with me so that if I do have downtime where I'm sitting, I have something to work on. But that just hasn't happened yet, so my crafting time has mostly become a weekend activity at this point. But that being said, I have made a little bit of progress with some things, so let's take a look. So I don't know if you can technically call this a finished object because it is really only half of the project. Somewhere nice and safe. That is done, but I have finished my very first sock. Here she is. Not even really finished because the ends are woven in and it's not blocked and it doesn't have a pair. But I've completed a sock. It fits my foot, which I call that a win. I used LaRue Cotton Vegan Sock Yarn. Someone asked me if I had ever used a vegan or a non-wool sock yarn, and I hadn't, so I thought I'd try it out. And I'm using the Summer Lee I'm So Basic sock pattern, which if you've never made socks is a fabulous pattern to learn with. She has video tutorials that go with absolutely every step of the pattern that you can go watch. And it's a free pattern, so if you want to try out socks for the first time like me, Summer Lee's I'm So Basic sock, great pattern to go work with. So I will make the pair to this sock again because it's most of the tube part is super mindless, and that's really nice because none of my other projects are at a mindless point yet. So I am going to start its pair here pretty soon, but I don't know if I will do socks again after finishing this. I just don't think that it's my thing. Also, given that I don't tend to wear socks all that often. Again, part of the climate thing. It's just not cold enough here that I'm wearing like huge boots a good chunk of the year. But it was really cool to see how it all worked up. And as I was doing the heel flap and the heel turn and then adding all those gusset decreases, and it was truly starting to look like a sock, I was like pulling it out to everybody that I saw, and I was like, look, it looks like a sock. Look at that, it has a heel. It looks like a sock. Because it is really cool that you're taking this tube and giving it 3 dimensions. I also succeeded in doing the Kitchener stitch at the toe. I do understand why people hate it, but I'm not sure why they hate it so much. Anyways. It's fiddly, but it's not any more fiddly than anything on the rest of the sock. So I don't know. That being said, I did screw it up towards the end. I got down to where I had 3 stitches left, but 2 of them were on the front needle and 1 was on the back, and I was like, oh, something screwed up here. But at that point I wasn't going to go back and fix it because it was just those end couple of stitches. And so I thought, you know what? It's fine. And you can kind of tell that there's a little bit wonky there at the end of the toe right here. But I don't think it's enough that I'm going to care. And I think I can weave in this end a little bit better so that you don't have the little bump. So, very first sock is done. It was an adventure. I did feel like as a knitter, I needed to at least try it once. But yeah, not sure that that socks will be a continuous thing that I have on my needles. Even though I love seeing everybody else who makes all these gorgeous socks. Just not sure that it's what I want to spend my time on. once this is done. Yeah, very first sock completed. Now she just needs a pair. So that'll go on the needles tomorrow, maybe. We'll see. But everything else I have is a work in progress because I have had a serious case of cast-on-itis. So the first one you've seen before, and I've made a little bit of progress on it. And it is my Lotus Tea. I have done enough increases that I had to go up a size in my needles. And we're still in the my lace looks like crap era. And before the next video, I'm hoping that I will be able to put it on bigger needles or something and steam it out so that it starts to actually look like something. But I haven't had time because I have been at rehearsals all the time. That being said, I do have, there we go. Let's get right side out. This marker was where I was at the last video, so I have made quite a bit of progress in the lace chart here. A good 2 inches on like a light fingering yarn, which I feel like is a big success because it's such tiny yarn. Really enjoying this pattern. The designer is wonderful. I messed something up somewhere, and so I sent her an Instagram message and was like, hey, I screwed this up. Sarah Blow, that's who it is, Sarah Blow Designs. I screwed something up, and I was like, hey, my stitch count isn't working here. And she was like, oh, hey, like, did you do this? And it was just that I misread something on the pattern, and I was like, oh, no, I didn't. But she was really sweet about it, and I got it all fixed, so. But yeah, we're getting some lace. I feel like I'm starting to see some of, let me get this off so I'm constantly afraid I'm gonna lose stitches, but like we're getting some recognizable lace. Let's see. There we go. We're slowly moving away from this is a bunch of holes to this is an actual pattern. I will say I did, well, I'll talk about that later, the needles that I switched to. Because I don't have this size needles in my interchangeable set. But I'm using more LaRue cotton yarn. This is her bamboo and linen blend, and it has been super lovely to work with. A couple places where the linen, scraggly is not even the right word, but where the linen kind of sticks out, but I feel like once I work it into a stitch, it stays. And it's just such a pretty color. So yeah, that's my Lotus Tea. And then, a weekend or two ago, probably 2 weekends ago, I don't know, I was freaking out because all of both the Lotus Tea and the socks were on size 2 needles, and I was short on size 2 needles because, like I said, I don't have them in my interchangeable set. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm going to need to move my Lotus Tea onto the size that I have my socks on. And so, how am I going to do that? And I was freaking out about it. And rather than just finishing the socks and getting that done so I could have that needle free, I started a crochet project instead. Also, with this same yarn, the LaRue Cotton Bamboo Linen, same color because I have a million yards of it. Super early on this guy. Haven't made it super far. Yeah, like I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows is all that I've successfully done here. And I don't know why I cast this on instead of something else, because you would think that if I have a lace thing that's like so complicated, I would cast on something simple or start something simple. I didn't. The Captiva crop is really cute, but you have to count. I have to count every single row, especially during the yoke increases, to make sure that I'm doing it right. So, so it's not any more simple than the other, but I am excited to have one of these that fits. So this is another case of I've made this top before, but I didn't understand ease, and so I made it small. I made it so that it was like tight on me, and I was like, this does not look like it does on the model, because I wasn't following the instructions and I wasn't understanding ease correctly. So I'm excited to have one that is actually going to fit. It's going to be so exciting. Only modification that I have made so far is that in the pattern between, there are like sections of 4 rows of double crochet, and in between the two, so you've got like 2 and 2, you've got a row of slip stitches to make like a really nice ridge around the end to give it a little bit of, to give the texture just a little bit of oomph. And I love the look of the slip stitches, but they're a pain in the butt to do. And I remember them being a pain in the butt last time, and I remember having to have like a needle like 2 or a hook 2 or 3 sizes up in order to do it. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. So instead, I am working through, I should have written this down. Come on, Kate. Back loop. This is my front side, so I'm only working through 1 loop of the row before in order to get some kind of texture stripe like that, but it's not going to be as, it's not going to pop as much as the slip stitch did, but it's so much easier to do. So if you do the Captiva crop and you want the slip stitch edge, make sure that you are using a hook a few sizes up in order to get to, in order to be able to continue to work into the slip stitches on the next row. That is like a constant problem that everybody on Ravelry talks about. So, and this is a dark yarn, so I don't know that you'll be able to see it quite as well, but let me see. So you can see that I've got just like a tiny bit of textural something here that's different than the rows before it and will be different than the rows after it. Which again is just going to help give that little bit of oomph without the thing that I don't want to do. The other option could have been to do like a half double and then go through, do a half double and then go through like the back loops or something. But I didn't want to figure that out. And that would also change the row gauge a little bit. So I am pleased with how this is looking, even if it's a much subtler technique than in the original Captiva crop. Yeah, oh, this yarn is just, I'm in my tiny yarn era. I just keep casting on things with tiny yarn. But here's the thing, I don't mind tiny yarn. In fact, I think there are a lot of advantages to tiny yarn, especially when you're working with non-wool yarns. I think non-wool yarns, especially like cotton, tend to get really heavy, especially when you put them in to like a worsted weight or something. And so I feel like that's why we also often see yarns that are cotton yarns that are listed as worsted weight, and you pick it up and you're like, this isn't a worsted weight, this is a DK. And it's because the yarn is so much heavier that if you work it up at a DK weight, because if it's 100% cotton, right, the garment is going to be super heavy. And that's no fun. Part of being a non-wool knitter is that I don't, anything wool, alpaca, all of it itches. And as somebody who is very cognizant of things that are uncomfortable on my body, like I don't deal with being uncomfortable well. Deal with discomfort, that's the word I was looking for. I don't deal with discomfort well. And so if something is like too heavy on my body, I don't like it. But when you're working with a much finer yarn, right, you don't necessarily have to worry about the heaviness of it because the yarn itself is so much lighter. So that's one thing to like about tiny yarn when you're thinking about tiny yarn for garments, and non-wool yarn for garments. The other thing I like about tiny yarn is that I feel like I'm getting a better value for my money, at least a little bit, right? If I'm gonna buy indie dyed yarn, right, it's gonna be more expensive. It's gonna be around like $25-$30 for 100 grams, okay? 100 grams of fingering weight or light fingering weight gives me 400 something yards. 100 grams of worsted is like half of that. And so I can make more with 100 grams of fingering than I can 100 grams of worsted weight. So I feel like I'm getting more bang for my buck. Yeah, it takes longer. It does. But again, when you're working with non-wool yarns, and especially in these seasons when you want things that are light and airy and breathable and all of that, you want stuff that's going to be lighter weight. And fingering weight yarns are perfect for that. So don't be afraid of the fingering weight yarns. Right? I think a lot of us are. And I will admit it's nice to work with something that's a little more chunky and have it finish up quicker. But it's okay to also work on something tiny, especially during this season. So I'm challenging you, if you have never worked with a tiny yarn, to try out a tiny yarn. Admittedly, I prefer to knit with a tiny yarn than crochet with a tiny yarn. So we'll see how long this Captiva crop takes me. But I've been really pleased with it so far. Enter your tiny yarn era. Join me. All right, and so last thing to talk about is acquisitions. I have not bought any yarn since I bought the sock yarn, but I did buy some needles. So the Knit Star store in Tulsa, Oklahoma I mentioned it before, they're closing their brick and mortar. In their online shop. They're only going to focus on the Knit Stars master classes. And so they have been selling everything, absolutely everything, for like 75% off. There is probably not a whole lot left at this point, because I got these 2 weeks ago. But, it could be worth a look. So I got, 5 sets of needles for like $2.50 each. And they're Chiagu bamboo needles, but because I got the small sizes, they all have the same cord as their lace ones, as their like stainless steel lace. And so it's a really nice no memory cord, really great for magic loop. So my second sock in the pair is going to be on one of these. And I got all of the tiny sizes. I have size 0s, 1s, and 2s here. Oh, and a 1.5. I was like, you know what? It's $2.50. I'm just gonna stock up because, like I said, I'm in my tiny yarn era, and so I might as well stock up on all of the needles for the tiny yarns. Now, that being said, I did switch my Lotus wrap. So I started Lotus Tea on size, on my Knitter's Pride Dreams 16-inch. When I did this last increase round, I went up to the Chiagu Bamboo 24-inch. And I don't like the cord. It's growing on me. For this many stitches, the cord was sticking a little bit. Because it's a different cord than was on the Knitter Pride. It's not the biggest problem. The needles themselves are still super slick and everything is working up really nicely. But the cord is just a little bit different. And for that first little bit was giving me a bit of a problem. So again, I think I'll like it for Magic Loop where I've got like tiny circumferences, and so I'm not using a ton of the cord all at once, whereas, on a garment, I'm using the entire cord. So, love the No Memory. Don't love that it's a little bit more catchy than the Knitter's Pride Dreams cord. But the join between the cord and the needle is just incredibly seamless and smooth, which is really nice. The needle itself is really nice. The sizes are like laser etched in there, so they're not going to rub off. Lots to love about Chiagu bamboo needles, if I'm honest. Lots to love about them. So go check out the Knit Stars website. They may have some stuff left. I honestly do not know. But you can also sign up for their newsletter and get information about their Knit Stars masterclasses, which I highly recommend, which have made me a better crafter and taught me some things that I didn't know before, and also showed me that it's not all as hard as we think it is. Right? I learned double knitting from the Knit Stars masterclass. I made a really cool double knitted Star Wars scarf for my brother-in-law. I have learned how to do beadwork if I ever feel like I want to do beadwork. I have learned all sorts of stuff about sizing my sweaters. So it's a really great program. And I've learned a lot of cool stuff, even if it's stuff that I'm never going to do. So there's always something to learn in the Knit Stars masterclasses. Well, that's all that I have got this time. I hope you are having a wonderful spring. I hope you are making something beautiful for yourself. And I hope I will see you in a couple of weeks. Happy crafting!